All right, I'm here with Matt Hope, who's going to be talking about AE-WWII's Occult expansion, which is coming out, and just talking about the game in general. So, first off, before we get into the Occult expansion, can you maybe talk about how come there's been a delay with the release of the Soviet and American heavy weapon troops?
Yeah, we've had some issues releasing our models quickly. It's been a little while since we've had a new release, and with the Americans and the Soviet heavy weapon teams, we had those cast up a while ago. Had a few casting issues, and we just posted the Soviet heavy weapon teams online and the Soviet Banshees as well. We've got the sculpts, we've got the masters, we've got everything ready to go. We're just waiting on some studio paints to be done, the studio paint jobs of the models, and hopefully the rest of those will be out soon.
So the figures are cast and ready to go. You're just waiting for artwork to put on the cards to
exactly.
Slip in.
We're waiting for the studio paint jobs to get those out there.
Okay. So if people wanted Soviet and American heavy weapon teams, they should yell at Rob. And
yeah, exactly. But we already got the Soviets listed online as pre-sales. So
okay.
Yeah.
So, you guys have been showing off some of the models from the Occult expansion, and you've been showing some of the new units and abilities.
Yeah.
So do you want to maybe talk about the Occult expansion?
Sure, I'd love to. Our first expansion to AE-WWII is the Occult War, is what we're calling the book. It basically details all the occult forces for the war in Europe. With our core rulebook, we had primarily sci-fi factions, the science aspect of the game, and in this case, it'll be all the occult factions for the Americans, the Germans. We're adding the British, and we're also adding the Russian Liberation Army. The Soviets will not be receiving an occult faction because of their immense hatred for all things religious or occult-oriented, but we do have a lot of new units for existing factions from the core rulebook and the new book as well.
Now, you said the Russian Liberation Army. Now, that's can we get some more details about that?
Yeah, the ROA was an actual large group of Russian expatriates that allied themselves with the Germans against the Soviets in World War II. And in actual history, they didn't really achieve a lot of fame and glory, but they did provide some significant battles, or some aid for some significant battles in the Eastern Front. In our game, the Russian Liberation Army is actually secretly run by a group of strange mystics and cultists. The cultists are rallied around the thought long dead Rasputin, who has revived himself or come back from the dead and now uses his influence and his mystical abilities to run the Russian Liberation Army as his own private force against the communists.
Excellent. Now, we saw a green for a werewolf released a little while ago.
Yeah.
Now, who's that going to be for?
The werewolf is for the SS, for the Germans. The German occultists have a couple of supernatural creatures, werewolf, vampire, and an undead spirit that they can bring to battle, as well as some strange, technomancy, some magic technology kind of things that they can bring to bear. So the werewolf is part of the German force and the SS, and they're a pretty mean unit, so they're a lot of fun to run in an SS detachment.
Now, you mentioned the British. Is that going to be a full British force?
No, what we're doing is we're kind of giving a teaser where we're releasing the British occult forces only. Our core British troops will come out in our Europe in Flames expansion, which will be our next book that we'll be working on. But in the occult book, we're going to be releasing the Ministry of Arcane Armaments. And the MOAA has access to all sorts of arcane artifacts. The British Druid is a sculpt that we have now that gains spells, and they can summon wood spirits and things like that, as well as counter cultists, a golem, and things like that. So we're introducing the occult faction for the British as sort of a teaser and a precursor to the full British list.
So how are people going to be able to make, so if they want to use the British in the expansion, how are they going to be able to make a full force out of that?
Well, we've seen people online, as far as our playtesters go, using our MOAA forces in conjunction with allied with Americans. So you can run them with an American detachment and run them as allies to an American force. Additionally, we've had people also just using Americans as British. So if you have, World War II British models, you can just use the stats of the Americans and give those a shot until then.
Now, are there going to be rules for like mixing and mixing and matching factions?
Yeah, what we're going to do is we're introducing, since we're starting to come out with more and more groups, we're starting to come out with rules for factions and alliances. So which units can go with other units. For example, the SS for the Germans has an intense rivalry with the SD of the Germans, and the two won't work together. So you can't run an occult force alongside a German geneticist force. However, with the Americans, the ARPA and their Tesla devices work very well with the Office of Occult Research and Development, and you can run the two of those together. So we'll be presenting rules in the occult book for how to mix and match factions, and we'll actually be posting those faction rules online with the release of the occult book, because those will constantly be updated as we come out with new releases.
Okay. Now, are there going to be any new detachment types?
Yeah, we have 2 new detachment types in the occult book, one of which is an occult detachment, which is similar to the experimental detachment from the core book. However, the occult detachment is going to be a little bit different, but it allows you to run a lot more occult forces than you're normally allowed, because like in the core rulebook, you need master units to unlock the supernatural units for the occult book. In addition, we also have a tank detachment, which is our first tank. We're releasing the rules for a tumbleweed experimental American tank. Will be in the occult book, and as such, we're releasing a tank detachment, which will allow you to run the only tank that we have rules for after the release of the occult book. But we do plan on expanding on that rule, using the tumbleweed as sort of a guinea pig to test out and build up our rules for tanks and larger vehicles, because I know people have been asking for that.
Now, the occult detachment also includes cavalry, correct?
Yeah, the occult book will be, we're introducing rules for cavalry primarily for the Cossacks. Soviet and ROA Cossacks will be you'll be able to field those. Horse-mounted riflemen, they're pretty mean. They're fun units to run.
And, of course, you have magic as well now, right?
Yes, the biggest rule addition to the occult book is rules for magic. Magic is going to be based off of the drive of the magician model, and spells cost both action points to use and drive. But a magician's drive will automatically boost itself every turn. So the drive of the magicians will fluctuate backwards and forwards like most troops, but they use the drive to fuel their spells.
Excellent. Now, you guys have been using the over-the-wire PDF magazine to push out like new rules and scenarios. What kind of stuff will people be seeing for that?
Well, our next issue of Over the Wire will be all our Gen Con stuff. So it'll be a really, really big upload where we'll be loading up all the Gen Con campaign. We did a campaign again this year, just like we did last year, so we'll be putting that in Over the Wire, as well as our AE-WWII Pulp City crossover rules. We've converted some of the Pulp City superheroes and villains. We're running an event tomorrow with the Pulp City guys, so those rules will be in the next Over the Wire. In addition, we don't have a tight schedule for what's coming out, but I'd like to throw in some rules for some motorcycles. I know that would be fun, as well as potentially some light, really, really light artillery, fixed position AT cannons and that sort of thing. Just to keep it skirmish scale, keep it small, but we'll be introducing some stuff like that in the future.
Excellent. Well, thanks for taking time to talk to us.
Cool. Thanks a lot.